Hello, this is Todd Wall from Aquatongue Media, and I want to discuss what's a little different. It's not an article, it's really a blog post from R Street, and the title of the blog post is Low Energy Fridays. We have the data. NIMBYism is renewable energy's arch nemesis. And so, just to give you a sense of who R Street is, the R Street Institute, RSI, is a leading think tank focused on solving complex public policy challenges through free markets and limited effective government. So, effectively, this group is basically kind of espousing sort of a libertarian point of view, minimal government intervention to the extent that which we can get government out. Let the free market sort of come to solutions. That's kind of the philosophy they're espousing. Seems like a libertarian kind of right-wing philosophy. So to go back to the article begins, poll after poll finds a universal truth among Americans. Everyone loves clean energy. Yeah, I think this is true. Everyone loves clean energy. The idea of clean energy, I think there's people who might have issues, their shortcomings to clean energy, and they're kind of sober and open-minded about that. But in theory, everyone does love clean energy. In fact, with 90% of Americans saying renewable energy sources should be given priority over fossil fuels, it seems to be right up there with golden retriever puppies in popularity, they're saying. Maybe, personally, I think golden retrievers are not my thing. I tend to like Brittany Spaniels and Visas a little bit more. Golden retrievers are kind of just big and dopey. I like, they're obviously high energy dogs, but I tend to like dogs that are even higher energy dogs and have more of a hunting instinct. Although I guess it depends on where you get the golden retriever from. I'm sure some golden retrievers are very fine hunters. But the article continues. Yet when we look at the data of who wants to live near clean energy, especially wind power, we see a big disconnect. Well, nobody wants to live near clean energy. Clean energy, particularly wind turbines, are very unsightly. There's some question about some of the noise they make. So yeah, no one wants to live near clean energy wind turbines, but everyone likes the idea of them. At R Street, we've taken a deep dive on state and local ordinances governing the deployment of various energy types, and have found that these ordinances are growing more numerous and more restrictive. First, let's talk about wind energy, which is poised to be the biggest loser under state and local ordinances. From 2003 to 2021, the annual number of new county-level ordinances on wind power increased by 16-fold. The average setback requirement, i.e. stringency of those ordinances, increased by 304%. And there is a clear trend in the data. Places that are more likely to have wind power are also more likely to have ordinances restricting wind power. Even worse, the potential for wind energy, the more stringent the ordinances. I'm not really sure that this is saying all that much. I mean, from 2003 to 2001, particularly the first 10 years, there was hardly any wind energy anywhere. So I think probably a lot of counties didn't anticipate requiring these types of ordinances, so they probably added them later when it became clear that wind power was a thing. So this isn't surprising. It's also not surprising to me that the counties that have the most wind energy are going to spend the most time thinking about wind ordinances associated with wind energy. If you have low wind, they're not going to build wind turbines. I'm not sure it's worth spending much time thinking about that. But let's continue. For solar power, there are similar but less impactful trends. The number of new ordinances for solar power is also going up, but their stringency is not changing much. The nature of ordinances on solar are also less impactful. The big caveat is that solar is starting to encounter some unique forms of ordinances that govern the minimum and maximum size of installations, which effectively prohibit solar from being deployed at certain scale, i.e. no community solar or utility scale solar in certain areas. So the trend could change in the future. We also examined geothermal, but its state and local permitting restrictions are more esoteric and have limited data compared to wind and solar. So yeah, this is kind of the angle that this article is coming at, that local county governments are beginning to make it more difficult to install renewable energy and becoming more restrictive with their ordinances. I think the big problem facing renewable energy is going to be, and it's going to get worse, is basically the lack of transmission. So, typically there are certain places that are really good places to build wind energy in particular, and other places where you got a lot of land and, you can build wind or solar. And sometimes those places are more rural and they're not close to kind of the urban population centers. And so there's a challenge in taking renewable energy from where it can be most efficiently generated at a lowest cost and taking it to kind of the population centers. And I think that's kind of the bigger issue that renewable energy is facing. I guess this is an issue as well. A national renewable energy laboratory analysis focusing on this issue found that if the entire country adopted the most stringent ordinances typically seen, it would cut potential wind capacity by 87%. That would still entail a big growth in wind power from current levels, but it wouldn't be enough for clean energy scenarios like Princeton University's Net Zero America. And I think if you kind of read through the lines, they're being a little bit, I think they're kind of being a little bit, I don't want to say dismissive, but there's kind of a tone in there that suggests that they don't think that's possible anyway. The revealed policy insight from the data is that no amount of subsidy will overcome state and local restrictions on wind power and, to a lesser extent, other energy forms that face local opposition. Even federal permitting reform is unlikely to make a difference unless an ill-advised, heavy-handed use of eminent domain is adopted. Seriously, don't like that. They put that in parentheses. Again, this whole article, this blog post is essentially coming from a libertarian think tank, and they're espousing libertarian points of view, so they clearly don't want eminent domain being utilized even in the service of something that most people think is good, which is the expansion of renewable energy resources. The article continues, the blog post continues, the upshot is that to sustain the current rates of growth for renewable energy, industry will have to build generation plants on sites that are acceptable to local communities. This isn't insurmountable, and other energy types have had to win over local populations. For example, oil fields smell terrible, and nuclear power plants scare people, but they are defended by locals. Under the status quo, however, renewable energy may run into serious problems with state and local permitting in the not-too-distant future. So, that's kind of the article. It's pretty interesting. One thing it doesn't really touch on in certain states, there is a NIMBYism clearly with renewable energy. I would say the biggest example is California. California has very aggressive goals for procuring the state's electricity supply from renewable resources, and it is largely relying on other states to do that for it. It's extremely restrictive, very difficult to build within California. CEQA, there's a series of laws that just make it in the environment is extremely legalistic, litigious, I guess is the word I'm looking for. And so it's very difficult for new construction to occur in California. So in California, most of the renewable energy that they're going to use to serve the state is going to, not most, but a good portion of it is going to be generated outside the state. So in any event, NIMBYism is definitely a problem, particularly for renewable energy, as with other things as well. But I thought the post was interesting, and would love to hear your comments. Please add any comments in the comment section below, and please subscribe to Aqua Tongue Media. Thanks.